I've got 5 takeaways for you from playing Pokemon TCG Live post-rotation. If you're feeling naked and afraid without Arven, Iono, and the Nest Ball, don't worry, I've got your back. Let's take a look at some substitutes we can make to keep our standard decks legal in the post-rotation and maintain some of that playability that we lost with Iono. Speaking of Iono, let's talk about that, and the substitution is going to be the Judge. Judge is going to have you and your opponent shuffle your cards in your deck and draw 4 cards each. Now, unlike Iono, you're not going to get an advantage if you're behind in prize cards. Remember, with Iono, if you had 6 prize cards remaining and say your opponent has 2 and you play Iono, they only get to draw 2 cards versus you get to draw 6. So that's what I mean by you get the advantage if you're behind prize cards. Not the case with Judge. You're always going to draw 4 each. But if you are in a position where you know your opponent is stacking cards in their hand, maybe it's the Alakazam Mega Evolution single prize deck, maybe you're playing against something like what I play, the Double Aid single prize strat, and they're stacking cards in their hand, you can use the Judge to disrupt that. Next, we've got Arven. Arven was incredibly useful in the past block, super duper strong, able to pull an item card and a Pokemon tool card from your deck. So essentially a wild card item, which was super powerful, especially with decks like Steven's Metagross, decks like Goldango EX even. Did I use it in Goldango EX? Not so much Goldango EX because it had so much draw, but definitely Steven's Metagross. I used it a lot. Again, just a free item card, whether you needed a rare candy or maybe you'd rather have a Nest Ball or something like that. It was just there for you with the Arven. There was no reason to not have 4 in your deck. But what if you relied on that like my deck did and you need a substitute? Well, you're going to go for Team Rocket's Patrel. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Although Patrel, it does not allow you to get both the item and the Pokemon tool, it's going to allow you to search for any trainer, so including supporters. So it's essentially like a wild card again. However, if you do pick a supporter, you're obviously going to have to wait until the next turn to use said supporter. So it's a bit of a gamble if you're doing that. However, if you have like a switch or something in your deck you're trying to get a hold of, Patrel is going to be incredibly useful. And later on, with one of the next takeaways, we'll talk about how you can layer these together to make a really crazy combo. Before we get into that, let's talk about the Pokepad. Pokepad is essentially a different type of Nest Ball. Instead of being restricted by the basic type, the Pokepad can draw, or you can search your deck for a basic stage 1 or stage 2. However, it cannot be a rule box Pokemon, so no EX Pokemon. Still very viable as a Pokemon searching card, and definitely going to see a lot of decks using 4 of the Pokepad. Supporters are also viable for Pokemon search. Dawn is super strong right now for the Double Aid deck that I'm cooking for sure. And before we get into what I think is the most OP deck of the format right now, let's talk about Meowth EX, because the new Meowth EX from Perfect Order is just too good. This thing allows you to search your deck for a supporter card when you play it from the bench, or when you play it on the bench from your hand. allows you to search for supporter cards. So what I was getting into just a little bit ago was, let's say you've got Meowth EX, but you really need a rare candy or a switch for something else that you got going on. You can play Meowth EX, pull a Team Rocket's Patrel, and then use Team Rocket's Patrel to get any item cards. So Meowth is just going to be super powerful as long as it's in play. I think most decks are going to use 2 copies of Meowth EX in this format. It's just going to be too good. And lastly, my 5th takeaway, what I want to talk about is the most powerful deck that I see in the format right now. I think it's going to take over. It hasn't taken over yet. I still think Dragapult is too prevalent, but I think people are going to catch on to the Raging Bolt EX Teal Mask Ogerpon with Meganium from Mega Evolution, and the Forest of Vitality is OP. Giving yourself the ability to go from a basic to a stage 2 in the same turn is just nuts, especially if you bring in Mega Venusaur. That you can get a Bulbasaur to a Mega Venusaur in one turn. Mega Venusaur's ability, I believe, allows you to move energy at will from Pokemon to Pokemon. Teal Mask Ogerpon EX and Raging Bolt EX deal more damage based on how many energy you have. Teal Mask works off of what's attached to both active Pokemon. Raging Bolt, I believe you have to discard them, but it's just super powerful. And combined with the Teal Mask Ogerpon's ability, I forget exactly what it's called, but you can attach Grass Energy and then draw a card using that ability. So if you have 2 or 3 Teal Masks, you can pull 3 energy out of your hand, draw 3 more cards, and just load up these guys with energy super quickly. And I'm finding this deck really, really hard to play against already. I'm using a deck with metal cards that have a 30 resistance to grass, and these decks are still cooking me. The ability of Meganium to double the effect of grass energy is gross. And combined with the Teal Mask's move, it just does tons of damage really quickly. Let me know what you think. I think this is going to continue to be difficult to deal with. This is going to be the deck to beat moving forward. Let me know what you think. Hope you enjoyed.